Well, welcome back, poetry lovers. Time to go for part two of Ode on a Grecian Urn. And so we're going to start here at the top of the third stanza. Ah, happy, happy boughs that cannot shed your leaves, nor ever bid the spring adieu. All right, so here's a good example of epizeuxis, the repetition of two words, one right after the other, and the meaning of the two words does not change. So I think I told you that an example of there's some figurative. Diaphora is a figure of repetition in which if you say boys will be boys, in the second use of the term boys, the meaning changes. Okay, but in epizeuxis, the meaning is basically the same, but the repetition is there just designed for emphasis, for vehemence. Okay, all right. And happy melodist, unwearied, forever piping songs forever new. All right, so here we've got the repetition of forever piping songs forever new. This is an example of what's called epimone, and that is E-P-I-M-O-N-E. So that's the repetition of, wait a minute, have we got that there? Yeah, there we go. Okay, it's the repetition of a short phrase in close succession. Again, it's for vehemence. Happy melodist here is metonymy for a bird. All right, so we got the figurative language that's making an appearance there. Now, here's another good example of epimony. More happy love, more happy, happy love. Okay, so within then the epimony, we also have the epizeuxis with the repetition of those two things. So this is, I mean, if you're going to scan this, happy, love, more, happy, happy, love. I mean, it's just a line full of spondies. So don't be surprised if that one makes an appearance also. So the question about what is epimony is going to be there. It's spondies there, and we know spondies are of course for emphasis as well. All right, forever warm and still to be enjoyed. So notice how we got the repetition of forever, 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 and forever. I mean, how many more times can he say it before he drives home this idea? And it's almost as though, you know, when you think about it, because the speaker knows that this is just imagination at work, okay, and all these human emotions that he is, and these abstract concepts of music and youth and warmth and all these sorts of things, okay, that they're not real, and it's as though he's trying to convince himself somehow that the things that he sees in emblem on the urn, things that he clearly wants. He's trying to convince himself that they will be around forever, and yet he knows in his heart of hearts that they will not be. There's an underpinning of wistfulness, but really an underpinning of sadness in the poem that is just inescapable. Okay, all right. So all breathing human passion far above, that leaves a heart high, sorrowful, and cloyed. Got that. The sort of the panting of the H sounds, a burning forehead and a parching tongue. The idea here is that these figures will never strain or tire or stop from exhaustion. They'll go on forever. Okay. Then we have a shift now as he's describing another scene on the urn. Who are these coming to the sacrifice? And he assumes that it's a sacrifice because there's a priest, and they're bringing a heifer to be sacrificed. So a heifer is a female cow who has not yet calved. Okay, so has not mated yet and had a calf, and all her silken flanks with garlands dressed. So they've dressed up this the sacrificial cow as part of the ceremony. What little town by river or seashore or mountain built with peaceful citadel is emptied of this folk right? All these people. This pious morn. Look at all those questions. And little town, thy streets forevermore will silent be, and not a soul to tell why thou art desolate can e'er return. It's like the speaker is deflecting the message that he can't help but absorb the inescapability of the fact that these things aren't going to last forever, things that he wants so badly. And so in essence, what he is trying to tell the figures on the urn, he hears, when he says it, he hears it himself. And the extent to which he's going to actually absorb it is another matter. Okay, so you've got the nice implied auditory image here of, O mysterious priest, leadst thou that heifer lowing at the skies? So lowing is a nice example then of onomatopoeia. Okay, so again you've got that, and the function of onomatopoeia is, of course, to make manifest the sound, the thing that it's describing. So, and just notice what a more elegant word lowing is versus mooing. I mean, mooing is the thing that we're used to, but lowing is just such a it suggests the sort of the full, long, throaty sound that the heifer is making. Okay, and there's also that sort of in the back of our minds. It's does the cow have some sense that it's going to the slaughter? Yikes. Okay, now let's go ahead and go here to the top of the 5th stanza. And so now, and we haven't seen so much of this up to this point, which is the exclamation point. O Attic shape. Okay, so Attica, the region of Greece in which Athens was located. So associated with Athens being the capital, the center of Greek life and religion. Okay, fair attitude. So your note tells you, of course, that this is used in its technical sense relative to a pose struck by a figure in a statuary or painting. And then here, look at all the music in this line, all that alliteration. Okay, probably gonna ask you a question about that too. Of marble men and maidens overwrought. All right, so if we're talking about the ornamentation on one hand, again, there's just a great deal of double entendre in the poem, and again, this plays to those elements that I talked about before that are dichotomous. They are two things at once. They show opposites. There's antithesis and so on. We're getting ready to have a great example of that in the at the end of this happy little stanza. Okay. Overwrought with forest branches and the trodden weeds. We know that weed in this time frame and all the way back through to Shakespeare, weeds had to do with clothing, but also the sense of whatever it is that they are walking on. Thou silent form dost tease us out of thought. So you get this sense of preoccupation and of this hopeless obsession. Thou silent form dost tease us out of thought. And now we'll go on here to the end. As doth eternity. Cold pastoral. So pastoral, it has to do with these are pastoral poems, are those that are dealing with the country, with the sort of rustic scenes, the landscapes and so forth. And we know that the Romantic poets were all about that. Okay, that link between nature and man. Okay. When old age shall this generation waste, as in kill off. Okay. Thou shalt remain. So he's talking to the urn again. Yes, he addresses the urn specifically as a vessel in the first stanza, and then he comes around full circle, of course, because he's going around around this three-dimensional object that is cylindrical-ish in shape. So he's back to it. When old age shall this generation waste or kill off, thou shalt remain in midst of other woe than ours, a friend to man. So even though the generation that Keats is part of, and even those younger than he is and older than he is, even when they're dead, okay, the idea of the sort of permanence of this piece of art will be viewed by others to come, and although they will have their own interpretation of the scenes that are represented on the urn, they then have the opportunity to engage in shared experience. I mean, this is what culture is about. It's shared experience. And even though each person is slightly different, there's a sense of the universality of human experience that's played out here. Okay? So, thou shalt remain in midst of other woe than ours, a friend to man, to whom thou sayest, the urn. Beauty is truth, truth beauty. That is all ye know on earth and all ye need to know. All right, now if you read the long note that suggests that is talking about the controversial use of the quotation marks, okay, and that the quotation marks are found in the volume of poems that Keats published in 1820, but there is no evidence of quotation marks in any of the other versions of the poem, including in the drafts. So there's some discussion as did, and this happened more frequently than than you'd like to think. But did the printer add them in, thinking that, well, gee, old Johnny forgot to put the quotation marks in here? But I think not. I think not. I think that I read this as I read the words on the pedestal of Ozymandias. All right? I am Ozymandias, King of Kings. The sculptor that writes the words and the way that the speaker reads them through so remember, we got speaker, we've got traveler, we've got the sculptor. The sculptor is interpreting Ozymandias' words on the pedestal. And here, I believe these are the words that are, and again, this is interpretation because they're not actually there. Okay, beauty is truth, truth, beauty. Now, I want to introduce you to another rhetorical device. Okay, this is called chiasmus. Chiasmus. Hang on. Okay, so chiasmus as a rhetorical figure of repetition, and that's spelled CHIASMUS. Write it down. I'm going to I'm going to ask you a question about that. All right, so chiasmus is as a figure of repetition. It's a figure of emphasis in which words or other elements are repeated with their order reversed. Okay. And every chiasmus, for the most part, amounts to this sort of pattern: an A, B, B, A. The pattern of chiasmus you're probably most familiar with is from President Kennedy's statement at his inaugural address. Ask not what your country can do for you; ask what you can do for your country. So this is this figure can be used to express a sense of paradox or irony. It can strengthen an argument by showing a novel way that things relate to each other. Okay, there I can think of two examples of chiasmus from rap music. One is from Tupac, and I can't think of the name of the piece, but he says, "Money don't make the man, but man, I'm making money." And then there's also one, a Snoop Dogg joint that he says, "I got my mind on my money and my money on my mind." So these are both great examples of chiasmus. And there are different types of chiasmus, and I'm really not going to go into those at this point. It's sort of beyond the scope of of this presentation. However, I want to tell you about another figure that makes an appearance here, and that's ellipsis, E-L-L-I-P-S-I-S, ellipsis. So ellipsis is a figurative device in which something is left out. It can be a noun, it can be a verb, but the mind fills in the blank. And look, there are an endless number of ways to do this, but notice what happens here. The normal inversion, if we're going to stick to a straight chiasmus, would be beauty is truth, truth is beauty. Right? But here, he leaves the verb out. And what's the effect of that? The effect is that it now puts truth and beauty right next to each other. It makes them, in a sense, synonymous. Okay? It's just a marvelous example of, I mean, Keats knows his business, and it's just a marvelous example of his ability to use devices to create an effect that goes beyond the words. So the thing he's talking about, how the urn is able to communicate more than a poet can. I mean, Keats shows you himself that he can communicate an awful lot with words and the way that they're put together. We could all learn a lot from the way that he uses language here. Okay, that is all ye know on earth, and all ye need to know. And this is also an example of, in a sense, of chiasmus. It's also hyperbole. The idea that to know that beauty is truth and truth beauty. Okay, but here at the end he's trying to drive this point home, and I would say that that ultimately the speaker speaks for the urn, and I think the message he has inferred is perhaps intended for us, maybe a solace for us, whomever has seen the urn and heard the poem. We can't help but think that the speaker maybe can, should, or did receive solace too from the idea, because the speaker spent most of the poem in what seemed like a high level of agitation, and yet when we get here to the end, look at how the language after cold pastoral. Everything, the tone of the poem just really begins to funnel into this idea of a quiet truth. Okay, the business about beauty is truth and truth beauty. That is all ye know on earth and all ye need to know. Okay, so that's what I've got for you here on this particular poem, and I just want to point one thing out when I said about the about not needing the quotation marks and the relationship to Ozymandias. My evidence for that claim is this one, that there's no doubt that Keats would have known Shelley's poem. Okay, I mean, Ozymandias was published 2 years before. Keats and Shelley knew each other, and I don't have any doubt at all that he's got this sort of idea in mind when he's thinking about what it is that a piece of art or statuary or whatever can tell us. What human beings are always trying to commemorate people and events and so forth, using whether it's paintings or sculpture or whatever, in the attempt to make them last. That we put the statue of Peyton Manning out front of a stadium, or John Elway or whatever it is, because we want everyone who sees that to know that this person was important to the enterprise, whatever that enterprise might be. Okay, so the urn here has that significance, and I will just leave you with the following. Notice that it's different than if this had been a pictorial representations of human life going around a pillar. It's around an urn, a container, and the sense that we have is that just as the urn contains things that are vitally important, in a sense, art, whether it's sculpture or the type of painting that would be on the urn or the poem serves as a vessel for I think the kind of beauty and truth that Keats is getting at here in the poem. All right, so hope you enjoyed that, and see you soon.